Okay, it is 6:30 and I will call this committee of the whole to order at 6:30. And asking for any declaration of interest or general nature thereof. Does anybody have an interest to declare? Seeing none, we'll move forward with the adoption of the agenda. I'll put the motion on the floor, but it has been suggested that we may want to deal with the two planning applications that are on the agenda at the beginning of the meeting to allow these fine people that have given up their evening to be here, that we deal with their issues, and then we'll move forward with our regular items on the agenda, if that is up to everybody. So I'll put the motion on the floor and then take any amendments as presented. So the motion comes forward from Councillor Foti, seconded by Councillor Maybe, that the agenda be adopted as circulated. Is there an amendment to
Yes, section 5.4, 5.5.
Okay. Thank you very much. So I'll call the question on the amendment to move 5.4 and 5.5 to the beginning of the agenda. All in favor? All opposed? That's carried. So the motion will now read that the agenda be adopted as circulated or adopted as amended, moving 5.4 and 5.5 to the beginning of the agenda. All those in favor? All those opposed? And we're carried. Thank you. Okay, so we'll deal with 5.4, Planning Report SR-155-22, file D14-2022-014, Application for Zoning Amendment 541 Slack Road. And the recommendation coming forward is that the Committee of the Whole recommends that Council, sorry, I just want to make sure I've got the right one here. 224. Got it. Motion comes forward from Councillor Gorell, seconded by Councillor Olkey, that the Committee of the Whole recommends that Council one approve that the application for the zoning bylaw amendment file number D14-2022-014 submitted by Richard Hanton for the property municipally known as 541 Slack Road be approved, and number two, a bylaw number 07-079 zoning bylaw of the corporation of the Township of Leeds in the Thousand Islands as amended be further amended as per Exhibit F draft bylaw and Schedule A to amend zoning bylaw number 07-079 to report number SR-155-22, and that the Committee of the Whole recommends that Council grant three readings and final passage to the amending bylaw. Discussion on this particular item.
Excuse me.
I'll recognize Councillor Gorell, and then anybody else after
Through
that.
you, your worship, having read the documents, it seems very straightforward, consent and then a rezoning. I see no reason to have opposition to the rezoning. Thank you.
Any further comments or questions? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor, please signify. All those opposed? And the motion carries. Thank you. Okay, next item on the agenda is in regards to planning report SR-156-2020, 22, file number D14-2022-009. The motion is made by Deputy Mayor Olkey, seconded by Councillor Maybe, and that the Committee of the Whole recommends that Council that one, the application for zoning bylaw amendment file number D14-2022-009 for the property municipally known as 322 Stratford Road be approved, and that two, the bylaw number 07-079 zoning bylaw of the corporation of the Township of Leeds and the Thousand Islands as amended be further amended as per Exhibit A draft bylaw and Schedule A to amend zoning bylaw number 07-079 to report number SR-156-22, and that the Committee of the Whole recommends that Council grants three readings and final passage to the amending bylaw. So motions on the floor, comments or questions, please. Go ahead, Councillor Foti.
Thank you, Your Worship, through you. Aside from this application here tonight, this property has drawn a lot of attention through various other applications. The part that strikes me to get perhaps the ball rolling here is that the encroachment on property lines on most every application is seemingly to the limit. I've been down to this site myself a few times just for educational purposes. I've been invited to the site a few times for pretty much the same said reason. And I don't know. I'd like to hear what the planning department has to say. Maybe I assume from the recommendation that there's nothing factual amiss here other than what I've said, but there's a few other things I could add to later, but I'll leave it at that for now. Thanks.
I will ask the planner to come forward and deal with the comment in regards to encroachment.
Certainly. So with respect to the property, there have been applications for minor variance for the house. There was application for minor variance for the pool and an application for minor variance for the boathouse as it exists today. The property is currently under construction. With respect to encroachments, there are no encroachments of any structures that have been approved. We can't approve a variance that crosses a property line. And there were some concerns received from the abutting neighbor with respect to the extent of excavation that is occurring currently with around the dwelling being constructed. However, with respect to the setbacks of the final structures that will exist on the properties, there are no encroachments whatsoever, and any setbacks have been approved in accordance with the decisions through the Committee of Adjustment. So the property was subject to site plan control, which regulates or which implements the minor variances in the zoning bylaw and establishes where the buildings will be located on site. We had a building inspector out to the property on Friday, and there was some property fall as it relates to the excavation that was occurring, which was addressed with the property owner through the building inspector being on site. So in terms of the property, there are no encroachments, and everything that is proposed to be constructed has been constructed and will be constructed in accordance with the zoning bylaw.
Is there a follow-up there, Councillor Fody?
Maybe I should, thank you, Your Worship. Maybe I should clarify. I didn't mean encroachment onto the neighbor's property. I meant encroachment to the property line in most every application that what I can see. Like everything is taking to the limit of what's allowed. It may be legal, and I suspect from what you're saying it is. I don't know. I'm going to leave it at that. I'm sure there's a few other people have comments here other than myself.
If I could just provide some clarification to my previous response. Yes, there have been minor variances to reduce side yard setbacks. Those variances were approved. The application that's in front of council or committee of the whole this evening is not to change any setbacks, not to alter any setbacks. It's to request permission to use the existing sundeck or the existing flat roof boathouse area as a sundeck. So it's the use that's the subject to the zoning amendment.
So I'm going to recognize Councillor Gorell and then Councillor Lackey. And then I'll have Councillor Mayhew, please. Go ahead, Councillor Gorell.
Thank you. And through you, Your Worship. This case has highlights 100% a problem that we are having with our planning 07079 or a zoning amendment. This is now the third or fourth time that this sort of thing is coming in front of us. And let me be very specific. It is the use of Committee of Adjustment material and then following it up with a rezoning. It has become habitual, and it has demonstrated to us clearly a problem that we have that we must address. And it is up to this table to address it. I will be bringing forward a notice of motion later at the appropriate time that is going to start dealing with this, because I do not enjoy sitting here having a neighbor with an extremely well thought out rebuttal. I read it and I believe it, and I'm going to vote for it. We cannot and should not continue to have these things come in front of this council and suddenly become an arbitrator, which is what we've become because of the flaw in the process. I know that planning department has said they're going to come with a report in front of us at some future date. That's not good enough. This has got to be, we can put a moratorium on this for now. And I know the single thing we're talking about is use of a flat deck boathouse. I am not against flat deck boathouse because they have structurally a reason. Might be the boat you're lifting. It might be the type of lift you put in. But this additional concept of we can scoot around and come and ask for and pretty much get a rubber stamp, because the planning department at this point in time anyway seems to have their hands tied. They say one party says the official plan says this, the other party says the official plan says that. I'm of a mind that I'm starting to lean toward the other side. I never thought I would say that, but I am. I am in total support of the neighbor at the Needles that has presented us with reasonable arguments that follow the official plan as much as the other stuff does. They both do. So we're supposed to arbitrate this. That's a pretty bad position for us to be in, and it's got to be stopped. So that's my speech for tonight. I hope everyone had a chance to read the rebuttals. And I just want to follow up with one simple statement. And this comes from the applicant, his letter of rebuttal. It says, I have done everything by the book and followed the proper approval process. That's absolutely correct. And that is absolutely the problem that we face. I'm going to say no more because it's right there in front of you. You can read it. There is a problem with our approval process, and I will not approve. I won't vote to approve this, and I'll ask for a recorded vote. Thank you.
Councillor Lackey.
Thank you, Your Worship, and through you. I don't want to get down into the weeds about the rest of what's not here in front of us for decision. Getting to the boathouse itself, just for clarification, what it is we're asking is rezoning so that basically a see-through glass railing for safety could be put up and a set of stairs so that it could or could not be used for lounge area or what have you.
Correct.
That's all we're
That's all we're
deciding
talking.
tonight.
And realistically, that's what our discussion should be limited to. As per Councillor Gorell's point, to bring forward a notice of motion, we can definitely talk about process at that point in time. But what's in front of us today is strictly in regards to the rezoning and the allowance of using the flat top roof. So I'm going to recognize Councillor Maybe first, and then I'll come back to you. Sorry, were you finished? I apologize.
Yeah, no, thank you.
Okay. Go ahead, Councillor Maybe.
Thank you, Your Worship, and through you. Yes, I was going to say that this is just to deal with the boathouse, but having seen some of the pictures lately, and sorry to digress here a little bit, I'm sure after the house is built, there's going to be landscaping put in to actually bring it back to a certain look and standard. So, but we are dealing just with the boathouse, and yes, we have a little bit of a precedent here, this being but the fourth one that's come to us that we've had to decide on. And it is difficult with the area that we have in the Thousand Islands and how beautiful it is and how often you want to look out over it and be part of it or get closer to nature, whatever you want to term it as. But it certainly is a lovely spot. And yes, as Councillor Fody had alluded to, there have been some other issues with this particular property that could change your mindset. But we need to deal with just the issue that we have. Thank you.
Go ahead, Councillor Gorell.
Precisely. We should be dealing with just what is in front of us. But what is in front of us is 127 page report with let's see, from page 65 through page 94, 98 to be exact, is a rebuttal from the neighbor. And if we haven't gone over that with a fine tooth comb, because again, I repeat, official plan, it seems to represent just about everybody. If we just approve this, we are ignoring the concerns of a legitimate concerns of a neighbor. and they're just being pushed to one side. They've taken the time to write it. They deserve to have it understood. And if desired, they can come to that counter. But I just want to point out a couple of points that they made in their long rebuttal. They did not offer opposition at the time it went to the Committee of Adjustment regarding property lines and so on, excuse me. Because it was good neighbor policy. Let's get along to go along to get along. At the time, they did not have an inkling that what would be further, what would exasperate this for them was the fact that this is now going to be a rooftop, habitable, usable by human beings. It's not a flat area with a clear see-through gate. There are potential issues that the neighbor has brought up. They're very legitimate. And when you read them and you read their very fine writing, I don't see how you can reach a conclusion that it's a nothing. And I'm not deviating one bit from the fact all we're dealing with is the use of a rooftop deck. I am bang on point, and we cannot just say, oh, well, don't worry about the planning report in some areas is it's hand-locked in a sense. In a sense it is, but the opponent brings up some points that they didn't really feel that the planning department had a grasp on reality there when they looked at the site. And I'm of a mind, and I support that. It's not a criticism. It's just that I think it would be going down the wrong path to just say, to not take into consideration what the neighbor has said and the neighbor believes. And if the neighbor wants to step up to the microphone, but I just read the documents and then tell me that you're comfortable going, no problem. I could go on, but I'm not going to. Thank you.
So I have Councillor Jameson who's got his hand up, then Councillor Lackey, then Councillor Maybe. Go ahead, Councillor Jameson.
Thank you, Your Worship. Just to echo the general concern that I'm hearing from a couple of councillors, but at the same time recognizing, as Councillor Gorell said, by virtue of what we have before us, it follows the rules as we have them. And Councillor Gorell's concern that we are not moving towards the change that is promised for us at some point. He wants to bring forward a notice of motion to perhaps speed that up. So it's a dichotomy in that I too look at it and consider the neighbor's point of view as being more than relevant and more than reasonable. But at the same time, the harsh reality is the rules push us in one direction. Until such time as we have that robust report on what we should really be doing, can we, and it's a question for council, are we in a position to reject this application based on the report we're getting from the planning director, which is essentially telling us, yes, the rules have been followed, and what is our argument against not following the rules ourselves? Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Jameson. Now I have Councillor Lackey and then Councillor Maybe.
Thank you, Your Worship. I just have two questions. One is being somewhat familiar with the area. There are other homes in the vicinity. I would say as close to the distance from the site of this. And I'm wondering if there were any other, through you to the planner, if there were any other comments from any of the other neighbors across the road or on the other side, opposite side of the property in question. And if I'll just continue as she's walking up, I've heard the words several times tonight, potential, the potential for noise, potential for light, potential, and I'm sure the site plan will have a lot of say in how that plays out as well. So if we had some details on the site plan,
Sure.
that would be great.
Go
too.
ahead.
Through your worship, so with respect to site plan, there will not be site plan. Bill 23 was approved last week to away any site plan as it relates to single family homes. So there's an existing site plan on the property as it relates to the dwelling that's under construction. But we are not permitted to apply site plan control any longer to a property that has anything less than 10 dwelling units on it. I forget what your other question. Oh, with respect to the public input, there was no additional public input received with respect to this application.
Councillor Lackey, did you have any follow-up?
No, thank you, Your Worship.
Okay, go ahead,
Thanks,
Councillor
Planner.
Maybe.
Thank you, Worship. Through you. So this application is actually for a new structure too. It's to replace the boathouse. No, it's just
no, it's
the
done.
structure and having this on top. Because somehow I thought that there was two different structures at one point. So it just the picture and the conceptual drawing looks that much different.
It's just add the glass railing around the top.
Yeah, just wanted to make sure that what we thought was.
Okay, Councillor Foti, and then if anybody else has any last remarks before I go to the attendees, if anybody wants to speak, they can put their hand up. Councillor Foti, go ahead.
Thank you, Your Worship, through you. I have yet in the 4 years that I've sat on council seen a individual piece of property go through the change that this piece of property has gone through. And I find it hard to believe, based on our official plan and a lot of other guidelines, that this property can go through the change it has and not trip off something that was in the guidelines to stop it from doing just what's been done. And I guess maybe that's what's got my attention. I doubt there's a square foot on this property that hasn't been bulldozed. I don't know if, well, I know they've used dynamite. I've seen the evidence of what dynamite does. So yes, there has been dynamite used. It's been jackhammered. It's been leveled. The trees have been clear cut for a heliport. Like where does this stop? Like, are we just going to take every island on the St. Lawrence and flat top them? I don't mean in regards to the pun with the boathouse. Like, this property's been virtually destroyed. It'll be built back up. I don't doubt the money's there to make it happen. But where do we put our foot down as a council and say, this is not acceptable? I'll leave it at that. Thank you.
So I'll just make the point that to your comment in regards to the official plan, when the official plan was being debated, Councillor Lackey was here at the time. Tree bylaw was included in that original draft and it was taken out, just so that it was, oh, right, you would have been there at the end as well. So I know that which we're deviating from the application at hand, but as reference, I know that some people have made comment in regard to the clear cutting, and we don't have a tree bylaw at this point as part of our official plan. It's not to say that's something that we can't discuss in the future to make additions, changes to whatever, but as Councillor Jameson indicated earlier, we have the framework at this point that we have to consider this under. So I'm going to let Councillor Oki go because he hasn't had a chance, and then I'll recognize you, Councillor Grell, and then I'm going to go to the public for comment. Go ahead.
Thank you, Your Worship. We have no tree bylaw. We were told to mind our own business when it came to aerodromes because it's federal. Great. We have one thing in front of us. It's about railings. Well, okay, it's about railings, but there's a downrange effect from what those railings are intended for. And although we're not debating whether they can have a rooftop habitable area, obviously that's what it's being set up for. So what are the implications of agreeing to this? Or are we just supposed to forget that there might be implications? And what the neighbors are saying, the concerns that we've had. So I'll just leave it at that.
Okay, go ahead, Councillor Grell.
One final comment. If you're looking for the reason to not approve this, review the comments made by the neighbor that are supported in the official plan. just as the Committee of Adjustment says, we must follow the official plan, the zoning bylaws, et cetera, that's what we're supposed to do. It's just we've been presented with a different point of view about how you interpret the official plan. One slightly different from the way the planning department reports puts it. When I read it, I do not disagree with that slightly altered. And it makes me very comfortable saying, good point. And that's always been my fear of official plans. There's something in there for everybody. And we know it. So do not be convinced that this official plan, referring to it and so on, you have every right to say, you know what, I question that. And as I say, over the pages and pages and pages written by the opponent of this, I think you could come to see. I'm not going to go over them. It'd be way beyond tonight. But if this means another deferral, so be it. Read the material and tell me what you come. Or if you're all convinced that tonight it's just about putting up some railing and have a good night, then sleep well. Thank you.
Okay. I'm going to, I've got Councillor Jameson. I'll let you have the last word since you.
Well, keeping in mind that an official plan is not a set of rules. It's
Guiding document.
It's a guiding document, and that is its fundamental challenge for us all, including the residents, including, in this case, the landowner, including us, because we're not in a position to all look at this, and throw the dart in the same place on the board at the same time. So it's almost like when the whole argument of the official plan, I remember before being on council, going to all those meetings about the official plan. At the point at which it passed, nobody was happy. So it must be pretty good because no one's happy. And that's what now we're facing the consequence of these official plans not actually being rules. So residents will come along and say, well, this is a rule. To them, it's a rule. To a lot of people, it looks like rules. It isn't. The rule, what do the rules say? The rules tell us through the planning department, which is a reasonable interpretation of the rules, that this may go forward. The problem we have is the overarching challenge of trying to balance the official plan against what we are understanding that our residents are more concerned about the aesthetic of the properties and everything else going on. So it isn't as simple, and I agree with Councillor Gorell if I'm hearing, it isn't as simple as saying somebody's followed the rules, so let's pass it. Do we start interpreting the official plan as a council at every single meeting where something like this comes up? Or do we have to move with our planning department because ultimately they're the pros? It's a tough one, and I've struggled with it, and I have talked to the mayor about it in the same terms, I think, as Councillor Gorell. I'm concerned about this one because of all the things that have gone on and what we don't know is going to happen. Thank you.
Okay. I'm going to check with the attendees to see if anybody has a question or wants to put their hand up. Go ahead. If you'd like to approach the podium, please.
Everyone. Chris Lundstrom, my wife Kelly Lundstrom, who's also online. We reside at 24 Needles Eye Lane, which is Needles Eye Lane, which is the property adjacent to 322 Stratford. And we did not have a chance to do our public meeting because in part we submitted, and I apologize, we apologize, a lengthy PowerPoint that was rebutting the proposed application back on October 11th. And at the time, we understood, we were told that it was deferred to allow counselors to have a chance to review that because it was important to review it per Councillor Gorel and not for just having the applicant provide counter information against our rebuttal. And we thought we would have a public, this discussion, the public discussion that we couldn't have, where we could put some color to what we submitted at this meeting. It seems we have skipped the process in some respect, but be that as may, you have the documents in front of you, what we've prepared, and anybody who's read it and considered it, we appreciate your time for that. I wanted to address, before I go into a just brief discussion presentation, truly brief, the points that have just been made. This is not just a railing. I understand that this has been viewed like that in prior applications that have not had a neighbor complain or issue their concerns, except for one, and that's their prerogative. Maybe it's because it's out in the open channel and there's a lot of water there. And that's the reason that the neighbor said, well, I can live with that and I'm not going to say anything. This is a very unique situation. It is inside a cove that is shared. Our property line abuts the other property line and it's deep in it. We have submitted pictures of that, overhead pictures of that. And that makes it uniquely different from anything else. A glass railing, if you have been on the river and you have seen the one that has glass railing that is prominent, not too far, but on another body of water, if you will, it can be seen from everywhere. There's furniture, there's people. It converts from a static flat roof. Anybody can build a flat roof now, that's fine, I don't care, into a living flat roof. This is a completely different situation for the property we invested in that, in our mind and advised by others, real estate agents and others, is that nothing could be built that would be above that level. There could be a boathouse. There could be some development back where the property is, but anything within the 30 meters would be extremely challenged. So now we have a situation where a property, I mean, if I was Pete Metcalf and I had been there since my 20s, that suddenly, for whatever reason, suddenly is able to use it as a sundeck. No sundecks have been happening unless they did it on the sly and the township didn't do anything, literally for decades out here. So what has happened that prompts suddenly the township planners to promote this so vehemently and ignore the downstream or the downrange effects that putting a glass railing and stairs, that might be the second component that you saw, Councillor Maybe, which are some set of stairs and then the railing, that now turns this into a living space above our bluff, looking into property that was never available to them before, and us also having to experience that. So glass railings, sure, that's what would happen. It elevates the thing an extra meter 20. People elevate it further. Then you have the downstream impacts, which is what the OP talks about. Noise impact, very different. And we've seen it. We've seen a bunch of kids having fun, jumping off it, etc. We know exactly how that sounds compared to down at the dock level, noise level. We have privacy issues that are part of the official plan. We have lighting issues that are part of the official plan. And we have a visual that was never intended to be there, except for some reason, suddenly it becomes something that has to be put in front of the council. So for us, and I respect your viewpoint that, we're spending your time, valuable time, to discuss a deck. But that's partly because it's been promoted using the process and rules to bring you a rezoning. And the reason you're following the rules, it's not that the rules have been followed on the rules have been followed on everything that's been approved to date. This has not been approved. The only rule that's been followed is to go to the township, submit an application, They say you cannot go through the committee of adjustment for this. It has to go to council. And therefore you need to apply for a zoning change. So the process is being followed. It doesn't mean to say that it has to be approved just because the process has been followed. So we don't see this at all as just a glass railing because of all the impact that we will have as a result of it. And that this is something that is really very key to the criteria set in 4.6.6 of section 4.6 of the official plan. As far as the question about comments from neighbors, the only other neighbor on the other side of the property, first of all, is on the other side of the property. And if you're familiar with it, has a point. So they would not be privy or involved in seeing that. Further, that neighbor is a partner of the applicant and is actually owns a company that is constructing the new 6,000 square foot home and whatever. And I mean, yes, there's a lot of blasting. And it's a very big project. It's a very complex project and it's being built by the adjacent neighbor. I doubt they would provide negative comments to this. But because this is a shared cove, it's a cove, there are no other neighbors that would necessarily see it and view it except if they were on the water. So that I was thinking would address some of those questions and hopefully might make you look at this in a different light. If I may, I wanted to address some of the things that have also been a bit misstated or misrepresented, unfortunately. And even in the rebuttal from the applicants, there is, and the planner, there is something about trees. There are pictures that are overhead shots of trees. There are shots from the trees, of the trees from the water. And there's an assumption that we are living in an area where our trees have brush and canopy going all the way down. We have very mature trees. The canopy is way up there. All we're seeing are tree trunks. There's a few trees that have some foliage, but generally speaking, we stand everywhere we stand, and Councillor Foti has seen it. You can see this boatport. We have even an area that is, if I don't want to bore you with more pictures, but you can literally see from the boatport up the hill to our house, where now we also have a sleep cabin being built. There are no trees. There's hardly any trees. It's like a clearing. That's why we have the fire pit there, because that's the only place, it's a place that's flat and we can actually have a fire without having any issues. We've shown you bird's eye views of the cove, and you can see that we agree to it, the minor variance, that it is indeed encroaching on that projected setback. But we didn't object to it. It was approved by a minor variance, and that's fine. But in that minor variance for the marine facility, it was not intended to also say, and if you're going to do a zoning change, that setback should apply for a whole new use. Why wouldn't this go through a new approval process for the setback? The setback, this is a new application. This is a new use. It's not just a static marine facility. And hence, whatever was approved from setback before should not necessarily be grandfathered into something that is a different use. I'm not sure how that works. I wonder, and I think some of this has been said, when we look at the official plan, and I understand what Councilor Jamieson is saying, the document was painstakingly put together, I'm sure, several years ago. But it is the guiding document for the township planners, for the council, and we think it's relevant. We interpret it using our experience on our property, and we thought it was crystal clear how this sundeck could impact our property and how it would apply, the official plan guidelines could apply to it. When I look at it and say purpose, goal, and objectives, there's a vision statement: preserve, enhance, that scenic beauty. Goals are maintaining or enhancing the natural beauty. Objectives are the natural beauty of the area shall be preserved for the enjoyment of residents, tourists, and future generations. Are these still goals and objectives that are valid for this township? You have 4 more years. Congratulations. I hope that there's a measured development in the area, still holding these goals and objectives when you make decisions. Not just you, the staff planners, when they make their recommendations. Official plan 4.616, I'm not going to read this for you, but it is so clear cut to us that we are going to have adverse impacts because of this in noise, lighting, privacy, and visual. Exactly how they stated, and somehow not a single word was altered in the staff report of October 11th, despite everything that we said. It is hard for me to believe that not a single thing that we said in the submission, pages X to X, X to Y, could not sway one word in the staff report. We feel rezoning should be a high standard to meet. There should be necessary justifications for requiring it. Does a new home, which the site plan shows, with over 220 square meters of sun patios and decks around the main home, almost 3 times the prior home, does this warrant council to be presented with a rezoning application, to have your time taken up by this? Shouldn't you say, look, it's not in the bylaws. You already have all this planned in your site plan. I'm not sure I should propose it to the council. I think this is going to be a tough one. It's not consistent. There are no reasons offered to justify issuing a rezoning special exception, except the fact that we built a flat rooftop. It also, as a standard, it should not have adverse impact to the adjacent properties per the official plan, and not just the townships, but also the counties. We feel we have more than demonstrated that these would be adverse impacts. Community and neighbors matter, not just applicants. The staff report, unfortunately, is not reflective of this property. The new document that was presented in these for this meeting starts by misleading the summary of our points. It's not about our view. We have a great view on the river. It's about what happens on this particular cove that we actually see a fair bit, but we can't always decide to turn right and look right. There's a perception that we live only in our home. When we're in our property, that we're inside our home. It's only about what we can hear and see from inside our home. We are all over our property all the time. There is an opinion that noise, according to the township planners, 15 meters high is no different than noise at water level on docks. At night, there's nobody on those docks, but at night, there will be people on that rooftop. There's an opinion that these trees are providing us a buffer. Clearly, they haven't been on our property to determine that. Yet, they say it does. They seem to be ready to promote a sun deck high up, regardless of privacy concerns. So we don't think this is particularly in character with the area. I went around and I decided to go through with your GIS mapping service. I got tired at 200 plus docks. But in the area from the Ivy to say just past the camp, past the bridge, there's over 200 docks. There's probably way more than that. There's maybe only a few, 3, 4 that have a flat roof. That's it. So the predominance is the character of the area has been pitched roofs, angled roofs, or simple docks for people to use. To suggest that this is not clashing with what the official plan tries to say, stay in character and so on, seems a little bit, seems odd to us. In closing, council, I really feel, and many of us feel, many in the neighborhood, especially when it came around the helipad, which we all opposed, obviously, because you didn't want low-flying helicopters. You didn't want helipads on the Thousand Islands, right on the islands, probably even not in Charleston Lake. This is your township. And the decision as to whether this meets the guidelines of the official plan some of you were involved in shaping, is yours. It's the planners. They want to make a recommendation for whatever reason, decide to ignore what our property is really like. I don't know why, but that's their prerogative. It's for you to decide. And I hope that we've given you the facts, because I think the facts is what you deserve. Is this also the direction you wish for the shorelines of the township? I think these things can fit in the right area. We don't want to object to that on the whole. But this is a unique situation in this cove that is shared. Fine. We trust your objective review, and hopefully you can conclude like us that this is not just a glass railing. It has a ripple effect that is going to harm us for the benefit of an extra 80 square meters of deck space when there's already way more than, I'm not saying they need it, but there already is a significant amount. Thank you very much. I appreciate your time. Any questions you may have on details, you know how to reach me.
Okay, so I'm going to give Mr. Sheaf, I believe, is in the audience, if you'd like to make a statement.
Yeah, good evening, Madam Mayor and councilors. Yeah, I'm Nathan Sheaf, the owner of 322. And yeah, I guess I kind of summarized everything in my November 16th letter. I went through Chris's comments in great detail and considered everything he said. And I found much of it not pertinent to this particular application, although I understand his position, took that into account. I would address a few things. I did hire Tracy Zander at Zander Plan to help understand the circumstance and whether this was permissible, compliant, or in conflict with the official plan and with the provincial policy statement. And her report has also been included. And she's online if we needed any comment from her. So that was done long ago. Chris has made many statements that I would disagree with, and certainly in his letters I disagree with. He does claim there will be a significant negative impact of using this as a sundeck. And frankly, I just completely disagree with that. I mean, I don't use sundecks. My wife does. She tans. I don't. It's daytime use, not nighttime use. We used to have a dock that was much larger than the one there is now. We removed it, and there was a big deck area at the end close to the water that the kids and her could tan on and sun with. This will essentially replace that, because the new dock structure that was built is much narrower. It's only 8 feet wide, whereas the old one was about 22 feet wide. So this really was just replace what had already been there before, although yes, we tore that down. In terms of privacy, I mean, that's a two-way street. Anyone on Chris's property walking around, and whether it's noise or lighting or conversation or music, that's bidirectional. You know, we would be impacted reciprocally the same way that we would impact him. And we're conscious of that. I mean, even I have 2 teenage kids, not for long probably, but they have parties, and many times my wife has talked to Chris and said, if the kids are too loud, you know, we'll let us know, we'll turn it down. And it never has been a problem, at least not that he's ever told me. And in terms of things like lighting, we'd be very conscious of making sure the lighting is appropriate for pedestrian and marine safety, and not you know, the last thing we want to do is cause difficulty to anyone. So from my point of view, I mean, I was actually quite shocked at the degree of response from Chris on this. And I know there has been others approved in the past and with opposition, but for the limited and sort of insignificant use of it as a sun deck, I was pretty surprised, but nonetheless took the time to address his comments and make sure you could see our side of it. And like I said, and like Councillor Gorell mentioned, I think I've done everything by the book on this. When we started to build the boathouse, there was no concept of a deck at that time. It was in fact originally a gable roof to match the original gable of the cottage. After a year or two of work, it all transformed into a flat roof, and eventually the boat port caught up to that, and it became a flat, and that's what it is now. And so we're in this position where we could use it as a sun deck, even though that wasn't originally contemplated years ago. So that's it. But I'd be happy to answer any questions about that anyone might have for me, and especially about the landscaping. Someone mentioned, I think, Councillor Fody mentioned, we will be investing a lot of time and money in landscaping, new trees. We did remove some trees in prior years. Many were rotten, 45% according to the arborist. many, or dangerous. 3 or 4 fell. One took out part of a cottage, my cottage. But we did replant 65 trees since then and plan to do that in the future. So yes, it will all be rejuvenated and we'll do what it takes to bring it back to, a great standing with good, healthy trees and vegetation. So just to answer that particular point.
Before I take Councillor Gorell's question, I have a question. You had said that originally the design was to be a gable roof. How high would that have been off what is
Off the
considered
water?
flat?
I could look it up. We have plans that the architect of both the house as well as the boat port. I don't remember, but it was higher than it is now but it would be the gable peak
The
would be
gable
higher.
peak,
So
yeah.
it wouldn't be usable in any way,
Correct.
but I could
Okay,
look that up. We do have actual plans for it.
that's fine. I just thought if you had it off the top of your head, I was just looking for height versus.
It was a
what
few
the
years
railings
ago
were.
that kind of, it changed about a year and a half ago to flat permanently. And the architect was angry with us for a while, flip flopping, but finally we converged. So.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Gorell, you have a comment?
Just one very simple question. If it wasn't important in the beginning when you built the boathouse that you have a amenity area, then why is it important now? All you did was change the roof line and suddenly it's become this, oh, we got to have this roof. You didn't need it before. You don't need it now.
Well, no, we had it before with the old dock. The old dock was 2,220 square feet. And so we had quite a large area, which was in very close proximity to the water. So you could suntan and jump in the water, the kids. And so that was removed in favor of the new dock. And so this I guess the roof now is in close proximity to the water. There is a new pool planned. It will likely take a few years for it to come about, just because getting a pool guy these days seems to be almost impossible. So although there will be more square meters of deck, as Chris has pointed out up top, it will be 50 or 60 meters from the water, and it might be 2 or 3 years down the road. We don't know when that's going to get finished. And in the meantime, this being in close proximity to the water is more appropriate, I guess, for use as a sun deck.
I have a further question since you talked about the flat roof being used or the deck being used. Has the flat roof been used? And this isn't to pigeonhole you, but it's more a question about safety. Are people sitting on top of the deck now and using it now and jumping off of it now?
People are jumping off it, but we do resist. The kids, I have a teenage boy, he's 17, and they put a little makeshift. I keep removing it. They keep putting it back up, and he gets a few buddies and they jump into the water. But I try to resist that but it's, if you've had teenage kids, I think
I totally understand. That's why I asked the question, because I know
I've
my
never
kids
jumped
would be
off the
like,
top of the roof myself yet. So, and don't intend to. So
probably smart.
Yeah.
We don't want to send the ambulance out your way. So, any further comments or questions from, Councillor Olkey had his hand up and then Councillor Fody. And I'd ask to be concise with your questions just because we've spent 45 minutes and we do have more on the agenda.
Thank you, Your Worship, and through you, Mr. Chief. I believe you're a very sincere man and a very good planner and all the rest of it. But one thing we have to consider is posterity. What happens today? You no longer own this property. Then what? Making a very wild sort of postulation here. A motorcycle gang buys this from you, and what happens to that roof then? People do have to think ahead. You've started something, it becomes a precedent. What becomes of it over time? We do have to consider that in our thinking. Thank you.
Councillor Fody, go ahead.
Thank you, Your Worship, through you. I think the best way I can sum up my feelings on the numerous changes to this property is that this is going to be kind of a catalyst for me. This is going to change the way I look at a lot of applications that come through here. And one of them being the 30-meter setback that Mr. Schiefer alluded to himself and made reference to. 30-meter setback was to stop development within 30 meters of water. What has happened now is the development is on the water. It's not within the 30 meters. We brought the development right out at the top of the water, right at the top of the boathouse. And that's to some degree what we're doing. That in turn has a negative effect on neighbors. And as for the development of the property, it's been extensive. I don't think our official plan, I don't doubt that everything that Mr. Chief has done has been legal, but has been shared before by Councillors Gorell and Jameson, the official plan is a guideline. And this is going to guide me in a different direction from here, this point forward. Thank you.
Okay, Councillor Lackey, and I'll look to Councillor Jameson if he has any last words, and then I'm going to make my comment and then we'll call a question. Go ahead.
Just one quick question through you to the planner. Director Venditti, how would this affect either way on the decision with some of the existing flat top boathouse applications we have currently?
Thank you. Through you. We currently have one other application that is currently in process. With respect to that, as a professional planner, my recommendation is based on the policies of the official plan, and I have to be prepared to defend any recommendation I put forward to the Ontario Land Tribunal. So as I've said previously, each application is looked at in the context of the location and the development and the policies of the official plan. The staff report that's been presented to council outlines my professional recommendation, and we would prepare a similar report with respect to the reviews of the sections of the official plan and the policies of the official plan for any other application.
But this would have no effect on previously approved boathouses or anything. This doesn't
Absolutely
touch-
not. Once the
correct.
zoning is effect, the zoning is in effect.
Okay,
Just to follow up,
Yeah.
at future boathouses as well.
Well,
no.
every application that's submitted has to be reviewed within the policy context that it's submitted under. So we would have to review it based on the current policy framework of the official plan with respect to vision, goals, built form, compatibility, and impact. So each one be reviewed in its own context.
Okay. Councillor Jameson, I didn't want to miss you if I didn't see you.
Any more questions for me, Madam?
I don't think so.
Okay.
The only thing I guess I picked up on no, I'm just going to make a comment. Thank you, Mr. Chief. I picked up on the planner is that if this was to go to I keep calling it OMB. It's so far past OMB. That LPAT. OLT. Oh, I know. I was just going through all of them in my brain. So if it was to go to that far, that we would have to defend the position of the planner, which I hope we wouldn't have. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Just for clarification, if there was an appeal on this, depending on what decision council makes, council would have to defend the decision of council.
Oh,
So
sorry.
my recommendation as staff is the staff recommendation. Should council go in a different direction, council would be defending their opinion.
So, okay. Thank you for that clarification. The other thing, I'm going to finish my comments. Thank you. Okay. So, one of the things that I looked into when I was looking at this was in regards to what goes on around us as well in some of the other municipalities. And we are the only municipality that has a marine facility bylaw. City of Kingston doesn't, Front of Young doesn't, Elizabethtown Kitley has a maximum height on a boathouse. And that was it. Many municipalities don't even issue building permits on boathouses. So by virtue of having a marine facility bylaw, I do believe that we have put provisions in place that give us the opportunity to debate and have this conversation. However, Councillor Gorell makes a point that this becomes an arbitration between neighbors, which is what we shouldn't be doing. Because structurally, from a safety point of view, I look at it maybe a little differently. But I've struggled with this strictly from a process point of view, and the process that we have to work with now, and looking forward at what we need to do going forward is definitely something we need to review. But in the moment, I'm trying to frame this with the framework that I have. So thank you for the clarification, Madam Planner, and we appreciate your work on this. Councillor Gorell, would you like to make a last comment?
And thank you. It deals with the Ontario Land Tribunal. My belief is that to the east of what we are talking about, previously a dock was approved by the Sea Committee of Adjustment, and a landowner, a neighboring landowner, took that to the LPAT and won an award, won a ruling against it. So it doesn't, does it have to be the township and council? Why can't a neighbor take it to the OMB? I think it was $1,100.
Go ahead.
Thank you. So for, just to clarify, council can approve, council can deny, council can defer. And both neighbors, anybody that's made a submission through of the processing of an application, as well as the agent or applicant, have the ability to appeal the decision of council. That being said, what I was referencing was if council were to deny the application, because staff have put a positive recommendation forward, if there was an appeal of that denial by the owner of the property because of council denying the application, and I'm only clarifying process here for you, I'm not, then because staff have put forward a positive recommendation, council would need to retain a professional planner to support the position of council. That being said, it doesn't mean that the two owner, like the appellant being potentially the owner or potentially the abutting neighbor, like depending on the way the decision potentially goes. All I was trying to get at is that a position needs to be defensible and needs to be represented by someone qualified to provide expert testimony at the Ontario Land Tribunal.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so Tracy Zander has her hand up, and I apologize if you've had your hand up for any length of time. My apologies. So you're unmuted.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, I can. Thank you.
Thank you. I appreciate the opportunity. I'll just be a couple of minutes. My name is Tracy Zander. I'm a registered professional planner. I've been working with Mr. Sheath on this application, and you have some of my comments. I just wanted to add a couple of things. As a professional planner, I evaluated the proposal under the context of your official plan, the same way your planner did. And I'm not going to go back through my report and my supplementary information, but I reached the same conclusion that your planner did, particularly when I evaluated the compatibility and built form policies under section 4.6 of your official plan. So as a professional planner, it's my opinion, my interpretation of those policies that the proposal does meet the intent of your official plan for those sections. And we've spent an hour already, so I won't go back through those, but you have my my summary. But I just wanted to point that out. Also wanted to note the Conservation Authority, who obviously has a mandate to protect water and shoreline interests and so on, indicated in their comments that they do not object to the proposal. Their policies do permit rooftop amenity space on top of boathouse facilities. So as a commenting agency, I think their comments also need to be considered. They did not have any objection to the proposal that is before you. So I too am happy to answer any questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Does anybody have a question?
Yes, I do.
I'll recognize Councillor Rowell, and then Chris, if you'd like to come forward to the podium to ask your question when you're done. Go ahead, Councillor Rowell.
Just a quick question to Ms. Sander. Did you represent Mr. Kavanaugh's flat top boathouse on the north side of Hill Island?
Yes, I did.
Thank you.
Go ahead, Mr. Lindstrom.
Yeah, a few, appreciate a few things to point out based upon the feedback from Nathan and now also from Tracy Zander, who have not had the pleasure to meet, but her, and I respect she is a capable planner and so on, and you're representing your client. But if the crux of your argument as to that we don't meet the infringe on the test of the official plan is because of tree cover, and that's the rebuttal, the last information came in, trees here, trees there, canopy, etc. We have this buffer that will never be affected by it. No mention of other uses of the area, then that's a flawed premise and makes the entire argument flawed, that therefore we meet the test of the official plan. Privacy is mentioned is a two-way street. We did not build the bedrock. That was done many years ago that created the topography of our property. We don't need to have approval by anybody, any authority to walk around our property because of that topography. So I'm not sure what this two-way street is. Here is a situation where someone is asking to do something that's not in the bylaws, to build something that would alter that, a physical structure to be able to now encroach on the privacy of the neighboring property. That's not Canadian Shield bedrock that created our ability to walk around our property and have whatever viewpoints it has. There are no guarantees, as somebody pointed out. It could change hands. Even if it doesn't change hand, it could be an heir. It could also, and as far as monitoring capabilities, we've seen that. There's been a roof port, a flat rooftop that's been used for 10 years, should never have been. Township did nothing about it until it was extended and heightened. I don't care that they use it as a rooftop. That's not my problem. It's on another body of water, another shoreline. But it's not possible for the township to really control things like lighting, etc. The statement is made that the dock is smaller than the one before. Well, square meter wise is one thing. It's 20 some square meters less. But perimeter is 40 meters longer. So it's not smaller on one side, it's bigger. If it's only, as stated, to be used for one person and maybe another person to suntan in, then why is the council being asked to have a zoning change and all this time spent for a 90 square meter sun deck when it is practically not necessary? So it's not about a glass railing. It's about one person or two people. Why are we here for this? That's the question I really have. But so we could go back and forth on this, as my wife stated in a letter earlier today. We are not doing anything to change our property. A physical structure that could be approved and is being promoted would change their side and affect us. It's for you to interpret whether that is the case or not. Now, I know very well the doc you mentioned. It was an egregious, anybody would have known that it was way bigger than approved in the bylaws. Yet it was promoted and pushed. Why? The neighbor that appealed only found out later because he was 2 or 3 meters outside of the perimeter that would give him a notice that this was happening. They scrambled, they applied for it, and an external body said, this was clearly not a minor variance, it's a major variance. And I'll close with this. I think the point that Councillor Fody and others are making is, when is a minor variance over a minor variance over a minor variance no longer a minor variance? If we go back and say, okay, we allowed a bigger perimeter-wise marine facility to be used. We agreed to allow encroaching by 1.5 meters on the 4.5 meter setback from the extended projected lot line. Now, we already are finished with a bigger facility. We're now asking to do even more, make it taller, make it used as a living space instead of what has been historically the norm for that property and the area. So it's no longer a minor variance. It's no longer the cumulative effect of the changes. At some point, it's not the last change plus a small change plus a small change. Let's look at the cumulative effect of those changes. We'll see what happens. But if the township makes an error in promoting something, they're incorrect. I mean, I understand what Councillor Venditti explained to you as far as what the consequences may be, who has to protect themselves in the case of a no vote. That's part of life. That's part of your job. But also, if the township is promoting something that I say the sky is blue because it is blue, but for some reason it's determined that there are no issues whatsoever on our property with this, then there's something that is wrong in that document. That is also something that we have to consider depending on how we go forward. So I trust you understand, we really, really care about this. And I'm sorry, Mrs. Mayor, if this is taking a long time of your agenda. But this is an investment. It was meant to be something. It was valued at something based upon all the attributes this property had. And this one decision could change that, in our viewpoint, significantly. Ask a real estate advisor, what is it worth without it? What's it worth with it? They'll tell you it's a completely different number. Thank you very much. If you have any questions, I'll stay here. So
Thank you. I think we're going to cut the questions off at this point because unless there's anybody in the audience that I haven't recognized. The only last statement I'm going to make before I call the question is in regards to people building things without permits and using facilities without having approval. The only other thing that I am concerned about, if that we do not follow the planner's recommendation, is that it does promote illegal use and illegal building because it happened before. We had to legalize it, so to speak, because it came to us after the fact, and it was even written in a bylaw, zoning bylaw, that it was to not be used. So my caution to the rest of council on that is that we only have so many bodies in the building department to enforce. So take that as you will. I'm not saying everybody has to agree, but I think it's an important piece of the consideration for this because there is significant building happening in this municipality and we only have so many bodies to deal with it. So I'm going to call the question on the motion that's at hand. I won't reread it because all the fine numbers.
Excuse me.
No, I'm calling question. I'm calling
Could you
question.
clarify for me what you've just said, that we're talking about flat top decks and you're saying that there are people doing that illegally?
Mr. Kavanaugh. And I'll say that
And
because he
that's
was
that's precisely why we have to
correct.
do something.
And I'm not disagreeing with you, Mr. Grell. The
I
problem
would
is we
just
have
be-
we have the
That's
parameters
a,
to deal with
that's
it.
that's a very tough ending to a tough conversation here tonight. Thank you.
Well, I'm looking out for the staff that have to enforce this as well, as much as anybody else. So we have to balance all these different viewpoints, which is why I made the point. So I'll call the question.
Your worship, please.
I'll call in the question. All those in favor of the motion at hand, please signify. And you wanted a recorded vote. Sorry, you go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Councillor Gurrell. Councillor Maybe. Councillor Fody.
Nay.
Councillor Lackey.
Yay.
Deputy Mayor Oki. Mayor Smith-Gacki.
Okay.
Councillor Jameson. I do
No.
apologize. Two five, the motion is denied.
Motion is lost. Thank you, everyone, for the debate and for the information. And we'll move forward to our regular scheduled agenda, but I think we'll take a break because we've been at this since 6. So if everybody needs a refreshment break, please take some and we will be back here at 7:50. Please and thank you.
Might I thank you, Mayor,
5.1 Administration Report SR-150-22, amendment to the municipality contribution agreement with Ontario Lottery and Gaming Corporation. And the motion is moved by Councillor Maybe and seconded by Councillor Foti that the committee of the whole recommends that council grant 3 readings and final passage to bylaw number 22-077, being a bylaw to amend the municipality contribution agreement with the Ontario Lottery and Gaming Corporation. Discussion on the motion. I think it's fairly straightforward. They're going to give us more money, so I think we should probably take it. So all those in favor, please signify. All those opposed? And we're carried. Next item on the agenda is Administration Report SR-151-22, Emergency Management Appointments. And the motion comes forward from Councillor Foti, seconded by Councillor Maybe, that the committee of the whole recommends that council grant 3 readings and final passage to bylaw number 22-076, being a bylaw to appoint a Community Emergency Management Coordinator and Emergency Information Officer, and that the committee of the whole recommends that council grant 3 readings and final passage to bylaw number 22-078, being a bylaw to appoint an Emergency Management Program Committee. All those, or sorry, I won't call the question. Does anybody have any questions? Go ahead, Councillor Foti.
Thank you, Your Worship. Through you, I'd rather hear the staff tell me who they see in these positions. I gather we're only talking the 2 positions.
Go ahead, CAO Donahue.
Thank you, Your Worship, and through you. So for the CEMC role, as noted in the report, that would be me in a dual role as operation officer in CEMC. CEMC is a position that's required by legislation. So I am currently going through the training that's required for that. For the Emergency Information Officer, we are bringing Director Venditti back into that role, which she formerly occupied. It was handled by Katie Forrester previously. Marnie had the role before that. And so we're just bringing Barney back into that role.
Thank you.
So any other comments or questions in regards to this report? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor? All those opposed? And we're carried. Okay, so next item is Operations Report SR-149-22, speed limit reduction on the Prince Street in Village of Lansdowne. And the motion comes forward from Councillor Foti and seconded by Councillor Maybe. Whereas Prince Street in the Township of Leeds and the Thousand Islands is a county road presently regulated for a speed of 50 kilometers per hour. And whereas a majority of the residents on Prince Street, specifically within the 590 meter from the railway crossing to Beatty Street, have expressed individually serious concerns regarding this existing speed limit, given the intersection of Prince Street and King Street, pedestrian activity, on-street parking, and driveways. And whereas staff have evaluated the segment of road identified utilizing the Transportation Association of Canada TAC Automated Speed Limit Guidelines Program, therefore be it resolved, council support the proposed reduction and proceed with the notice of motion to the United Counties of Leeds and Grenville, UCLG, recommending the reduction of the regulated speed limit on Prince Street from 50 kilometers an hour to 40 kilometers an hour as identified in the TAC program. Comments, questions? I'll go with Councillor Lackey and then Councillor Maybe.
Thank you, Your Worship, through you. I will be supporting this, but just to carry it a bit further through you to our Director of Operations, where are we with the street alignment and the barrier crossing King Street East at the top of the hill to prevent people from coming up the wrong way?
It's on. Don't worry about it.
Through Your Worship. So the design of the village is on hold pending the municipal EA that we're undertaking. I didn't want to engage an engineer until we had more information on the water system to know whether we have to do any underground works, so that it would all roll into one big project. I've spoken with the county about this project as well. I have seen a layout of what you're suggesting with blocking off King Street East. And I've had conversations with the business owners at the top, the Tipsy Goat, about the one way and potentially finding ways to make it so that it is only one way. On street parking and those types of things can be done, or adjacent parking can be done. But ultimately, I think there's a need to eliminate the pedestrian or the traffic that is coming up the hill. We have temporarily added more signs at the intersection. And I don't know the name of the road that it intersects, but King Street runs
King and
down,
Prince.
but it's, the one, anyway.
Yep.
King and Prince.
No, no.
Yeah,
he's talking about
the next
at the
one
bottom of
directly to the
hill.
east.
Oh, the bottom,
So
right.
we had added more signs down there to tell people that not to come up to the road. And then we replaced the what looked like a stop sign at the hydro pole with a proper do not enter. And that from what I've told seems to have made a difference so far. But yeah, we need to do some longer term items to address that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And if we could perhaps make the OBP aware of this change as well, and that they adhere to it unless there is some sort of emergency.
Yes, sir. Duly noted. Counselor Maybe and Counselor Fody next.
Thank you, Worship, through you. We did have talk about from number 2 highway to the railway at one time about changing that speed. And I don't know whether that actually has gone into effect yet.
So the speed from number 2 highway to the railway tracks, or sorry, to
Newell's.
the existing reduced speed zone when you come into Lansdowne was completed last year. They had reduced it from, I believe it was 80 kilometers an hour down to 50 kilometers an hour. So it's already 50 kilometers an hour.
Yeah.
The existing 80 zone did not meet the criteria for length of the zone, so that the county did undertake that.
Excellent. Thank you.
Okay. Counselor Fody.
Thank you, Your Worship, through you. My proposal for stopping traffic coming up the wrong way, just block the street off. There's really not going to be a lot of negative impact for those who want to go down that hill. There are other options, even for the residents that live immediately at the start point down the hill. I think there's 2 houses before the first side street, and then there's 3 on the opposite. But I've seen it done. I was out in Perth on the weekend, and there was a perfect example there that they had to deal with that at one time, just south of Highway 7, which is Dundas Street East, I believe they call it now. Regardless, they just blocked it off. Obviously, they had issues because not only was the traffic coming out into a heavy interchange, it was also very close proximity to a railway crossing. So they just blocked it off. And when I looked at that, I thought there's a quick answer for traffic coming up the wrong way. Just block it. Just temporary, like cement. I don't mean tear the road up. If it's the wrong move, let's try it for a while. We could put cement barriers up there just to see how it works.
Are you thinking of like Jersey barriers type
Yes.
thing?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
I do agree. I did agree with that until I met with the owners of the Tipsy Goat out on site. And the concern that they have is that their parking is on the north side of their building, which if we do create some sort of blockade all the way around and extend the sidewalk, we've now removed all of their parking, or you'd have to come up and around in order to get to their parking at the top end of King Street East. Which might have a negative impact on their business. So that's the other balance that we need to find as well.
Pending where you put the barriers. They don't have to be at the top of the hill.
Could
The
be.
barriers could be down. I don't want to impede on the property owners that live down there, but maybe perhaps somewhere close to the property line. We don't want to put a Jersey barrier direct sight of somebody's living room window. But anyway, that's my point.
I'll let you follow up, Counselor Lackey. Sorry, I'm looking at my list. Wrong name again.
Over here.
Yeah, over here. Got it.
Yeah, I would agree that, I mean, in the way I depict it, the Jersey barrier would be down towards the hydro pole in front of the coffee shop, which would actually increase the parking for both parties involved, to be honest with you. So I think it's a great idea.
Okay, so sorry, Counselor Fody, go ahead.
Well, thank you, Your Worship. That Councillor Lackey's point brings up a real good point. It would increase the parking. If you put Jersey barriers there, people could just nose into every one of those spots. You could literally use the street for parking. I think we should try it. It's not going to cost us anything except the placement of a couple of Jersey barriers. 3, 4. You want to make it wide enough that those who think they can fit can't.
Okay. Any further comments or questions in regards to this report? This motion that's on the floor? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor? All those opposed? We're carried. I'll gladly take that to county. Thank you, Director. Okay. Next item on the agenda, planning report. Nope, that's not it. I already dealt with those. Sorry, 5.6, right? Got it. Just want to make sure that I'm in the right spot here. Administration report SR-133-22-2023 council and committee meeting schedule. Motion comes forward with from Deputy Mayor Olkey, seconded by Councillor Gorell, that the committee of the whole recommends that council approve the 2023 Township of Leeds and the Thousand Islands Council and committee meeting schedule. Any discussion on this motion? Go ahead.
Thank you, Your Worship. Just wondering about the January one, the first committee of the whole was moved the second week and then adversely the third week. Just wondering, is it just because of New Year's?
Because
or
the second is a holiday.
Typically we move to the next day. That's, we have. moved
The
from
problem
Monday
is
to
people
Tuesday.
have been off on holidays, so I think,
Okay.
I shouldn't say the problem. I'm assuming that people have been on holidays and that it gives ample time for reports and what have you.
Okay, not a
Okay.
problem. Just to note that I won't be at council that particular month.
Okay. Thank you for letting us know. Any further comments or questions? Seeing none. Oh, go ahead, Councillor Rupp.
Through you, Your Worship, June, I see that council would be on the 19th. And I appreciate, it looks like there's an important committee conference, excuse me. But that only allows that's 2 weeks max to the July committee of the whole. Is that enough? Does that work for you guys? Can that work? Seems tight. That's all I'm thinking.
The other thing is that we're off in August as well. So July is our last meeting. So if the staff were pressed for time, there is no reason they can't come back to us and we can amend this. This isn't cast in stone.
Okay.
So I
Late.
think that in the event, this is what's been proposed based on dates and times. And if something becomes a challenge for staff, I'm sure they'll let us know to bring it forward if there is a challenge, if that's okay with everybody else. Yeah, we can always push it if we need to. Okay, any further comments or questions? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor? All those opposed? And we're carried. Okay, and next item is administration report SR-154-22 committee and board bylaw. So moved by Deputy Mayor Olkey and seconded by Councillor Gorell, that the committee of the whole recommends that council grant 3 readings and final passage to bylaw number 22, being a bylaw to define the mandate and the meeting procedures for the committees and boards established by the corporation of the Township of Leeds and the Thousand Islands. Discussion on the motion. Seeing none, I will call the question. All those in favor? All those opposed? And we're carried. Okay. So unfinished business. Any unfinished business? Go ahead, Councillor, Deputy Mayor Olkey.
I'm not used to the title yet either, Your Worship, but thank you.
I have to think about these things.
Unfinished business, I'm going to use one word, roads. And roads will always be unfinished business in this township. Tonight, I took an excursion with a constituent down Sand Bay Road from 1301 Sand Bay to its end. And it's a compendium of failed culverts, no culverts, filled in ditches and blind corners. We have many roads like that, and it takes, well, the one specific question I have is, I guess it relates more to county. I'm getting a lot of concern still about the school speed zone in Lyndhurst. One truck driver from Tuckerbury told me that he went down to the speed limit as posted, and between entering the zone and ending the zone, 7 people passed him early morning. So can we get some idea of when this automated sign is going to come in that adjusts the speed limit and the time? I know that it's been talked about a lot, but we've seen no action. Thank you.
Director, do you want to address that?
Thank you, through your worship. I actually just spoke with the county about this last week, and they're still saying that parts on order. they're waiting on materials to come in.
But nonetheless, I think the more important piece of this is enforcement. And I realize that the police officers can't be everywhere all the time, but this is a school zone and we need to change some behavior patterns. So perhaps it can be asked that the clerk, we can send an official letter just reminding them that this is something that requires some attention just to make sure for safety. Go ahead, Councillor Lackey.
Thank you, Your Worship. Through you to the director, could we not, in the interim, lend them our flashing speed, you know, our LED
Had
speed
an I believe.
when we had, in our hamlets?
Yes, we could. They actually have their own as well. So I can suggest that to the department there and see if there's an appetite to put one of those up. All we can do is
But
ask.
temporarily, I think it's important, and even if it's not done before the end of December, at least when the kids return for the new year, I think it's important. As soon as possible, having said that, but go ahead, Councillor, maybe.
Thank you, Your Worship. As unfinished business, talk about roads, but this is more of a high-speed road. And with the recent announcement of broadband and some funding that's coming our way, or the potential of funding, just wondering if there's any updates or any inquiry into any of that potential funding that might be coming, or whether there's any information that's come back to us on that.
Funding.
This
for
was
what specifically?
a couple of weeks ago. It came out by the municipal office, I believe.
I think that they haven't made any specific announcements for pots yet. And they were just dealing with Bill 23 for the time being.
Well, yeah, it's kept them busy.
Yeah. Go ahead, Councillor Grow.
Through you, Your Worship, and to Councillor, maybe, I think that's something that we as township should follow up with the Infrastructure Ontario, because they made some promises and they did allocate a lot of money to explore 242 million. But when you look at who they're covering, it's all of Ontario. So they still haven't, to my knowledge, that's the province, has not released any information on those blocks that they had formed up for underserved and unserved areas. I think it would, all municipalities in all areas would like to know, show us the blocks. They said they would be transparent. There's been nothing. It's the most opaque process I've ever seen. So we should follow up. I don't know what
So
it'll
with-
get us, but we should follow up.
So with consensus from the group here, I can write a letter on behalf of council asking where this is. I'll have Director Venditti help me draft it along with the CAO as they worked on the broadband project.
Yeah.
I will try to use some strongly worded language about the lack of transparency and the lack of timing, because I believe that the guideline was to be done by the end of 2025. We're at the end of 2022. That's,
Sure.
we're ticking at this point. So,
There was an election just before all those promises, or just after.
well,
all those
and
promises.
to be fair, certainly not to undermine the letter, but every time I see Minister Clark, it's one of the things that we talk about on an ongoing basis, because not only that, but you're looking at cell phone towers and all the other things that even some we've approved here and still are yet to be erected. I realize they're private providers. Nonetheless, though, is that waiting till the very last minute to execute all of this is really not, it's not helping anybody. So I will we'll draft that letter and then we'll circulate it to council, and provided everybody's in agreement, we'll send it off. Any other unfinished business? I will add to the unfinished business. Director of Operations, can you come forward? And then I'll release you to go. Somebody has to be picked up. Would you like to give an update about MTO and our meeting with MTO? Just the things that we were dealing with County Road 3 at the on-ramp, off-ramp, the Highway 32 and 15, concerns about speed, that they're still working on these things.
Yes.
Yes.
So as the mayor said, we had a meeting last week, the week
2 weeks
before,
ago.
2 weeks ago, with the director of Eastern Ontario operations, I believe, for MTO. We again brought our case out about the the crossing at County Road 2 at the off ramp, our concerns with the lack of visibility, with the speed, that we had requested a flashing light at that location. So they heard us, I guess, is what we gained from that. We expressed our concerns with the grade of County Road 3, where it meets the off ramps, both east and westbound on the 401. So they understand that. I don't think that it meets their guidelines personally, given that you have to look past the guide rail you have to drive out past the guide rail in order to be able to see oncoming traffic. We expressed our interest in having a speed reduction on Highway 15 where it meets County Road 32, given that we're going to be constructing a fire hall in the very near future at that location. And then the other item was the Thousand Islands Parkway. When you're exiting off of the 401 by Gananoque Way and you meet where the split where County Road 2 and the Thousand Islands Parkway where they go in their separate directions, the only indicator that heavy trucks shouldn't be on the parkway is a small no truck sign directly in between them, a 1x2 type sign. So we expressed to them that we felt that was deficient for vehicles traveling at 100 kilometers an hour to be able to navigate which way you're not supposed to be going with a truck. You see a small little exit off the side of a 4-lane road, and you would assume that that's where trucks aren't supposed to go, so they go on the parkway. So they're going to look into that one as well. They have done a good job of updating all of the other heavy truck signs on the parkway at the different locations, but for some reason this one was missed. We had our county group meeting as well, actually the same day, that morning, and the OPP had indicated similar concerns with what we had for County Road 3, for County Road 2, for the speed on 15. The OPP their position is that they direct the traffic onto County Road 2, the majority of the traffic during an EDR. But then when it becomes unsafe on County Road 2, then they will direct some traffic onto the parkway. And Thousand Islands Parkway seems to agree with that as well, given that the infrastructure is there. So that's the process that they've taken. But and that's in emergency situations, but on the regular daily occurrence, there shouldn't be any oversized vehicles on that. The OPP had encouraged the MTO, the representative that was at the meeting, to go and have a look at County Road 3 and at County Road 2, just so that they could see it firsthand what our concerns are. So I think that was a positive day where we were getting our message through. We had also had a meeting in the morning with in the Thousand Islands Parkway. No.
There's an announcement coming.
Something else.
There's something else that happened that the official announcement hasn't been made, so we won't steal the Parkway Commission's thunder.
Good news coming though.
We were pleased to assist in helping move that issue forward, and I'm hopeful that we'll have a lovely winter season ahead of us on the Parkway. So, okay, I've got Councillor Garrell and Councillor Fody.
Thank you, through your worship. Dave, there's a sign down at the beginning of Ward 3 that, well, there's no sign, but there is the structure for the posts. That's been there for quite some time, and a lot of residents are beginning to ask, is it our responsibility or is it another township?
That is our responsibility. We do have the sign boards in stock. So this is all of our boundary road signs that we were replacing. We had a contractor in place who we had to step away from that contractor. We had engaged another contractor who had a personal injury, and we're just waiting for him to get back up and going before we can get those signs installed. There are 11 in total that we're replacing because they all seem to fail about the same time.
Councillor Fody, then Councillor Olkey.
Thank you, Your Worship. I have 2 points I want to make. With regards to shutdown, this will be for the fire chief, actually. With regards to shutdown for accidents, and they're redirected off the 401 onto EDR routes. Are we, or you, I should say, in a position to actually manpower and block trucks from turning toward the parkway? Or do we have that kind of manpower, people power to make that happen? I mean, I know it can be a timely thing. It could be an 8-10 hour redirection of traffic. But I think if they weren't allowed to turn toward the parkway to start with, it would alleviate a lot of issues with trucks on the parkway.
Through your worship, and as the director of operations said, that's an OPP function. That's where we don't technically direct traffic. We can't close roads. Roads departments and OPP are the only agencies that can do that. So in the event of an emergency or an EDR, we met as an operations group with OPP and operations a couple weeks ago, and that was one of the things they spoke about was, trying to manipulate the traffic around, and as it backs up on highway number 2, they're shooting some traffic down to the parkway if they have to, but it's not the norm. But no, that's an OPP function, so we wouldn't be involved too much in that.
Okay, I won't get into the weeds. I've seen both. I just thought maybe when they were in a serious accident involvement where it requires a lot of OPP presence on the scene, do they reach out to you and ask you? But I'll leave that between you two agencies. My other point is for the director of operations with regard to the MTO theme. The new scale house here, eastbound 401 in our jurisdiction is now open. As the numbers are buried between well into the 20-some million dollar project. Is that something, I assume there's going to be a ribbon cutting ceremony for that?
I know there was one scheduled during COVID when it was supposed to be open the first time.
Yes. But due to electrical malfunctions, it was postponed.
Electrical malfunctions.
Yes.
I never heard that.
They actually cut the pavement up in several places and had to redo something. It looked expensive.
Oh.
But oh no, I'm just saying I'm looking forward because it was such a large dollar investment by the province in our jurisdiction. I think it would be kind of fun if we could partake in that ribbon cutting if and when. I know there's little on Minister Clark's plate right now, so I thought maybe if you're talking to him, you could mention that we'd be interested in knowing the official opening.
I would think that we could let Louis know at MTO that he might have some, because I know the former director had included me in that as well, which I can share with council. So they're a year and a half behind schedule. And so I'm sure that they have full intent on cutting the ribbon, but I think there's a couple more things that they're waiting on signage wise there.
Well, I'm being a little facetious that Minister Clark might like a happy moment right about now.
Yeah, maybe.
Additionally, I'm meeting with a consultant that's on that project this week, and I can ask from that end of things what the status is, timelines.
Perfect. Councillor Oakley.
Thank you, Your Worship. A very quick one for you. Someone observed to me that the colors on our signs had changed, that brown had replaced blue. I don't know about this. Do you have any update on that or why that would be?
I don't believe we changed color of anything.
No, we use the template that I've seen since I've come here. We haven't changed any of the templates, but
okay,
certainly something I can look into. Specifically on signs or
the big signs with the loon on them and everything.
Okay, we actually haven't replaced any of the signs yet.
Somebody saw a sign that had brown on it instead of blue.
Okay.
I think it might be the one that's up in the Sealy's Bay Fire Hall or something.
Oh,
Mark's waving his
Mark,
hand.
sorry.
Thank you.
You need to just say, hey, me.
Hey, you.
Hey, you.
No, I didn't want to interrupt the Deputy Mayor Gordy if you're done. I just wanted to remind council that we have entrance lights at the west and east end of Sealy's Bay on Highway 15 because of the work of our operations staff and not the MTO. Well, I'm sorry. I just still don't think they are anywhere close to being our friends, but I appreciate the optimism of the operations director. I would like to say that has been more discussion by the community group about the signs, but I was told, and I'd like to confirm this, that the signs, the township signs that said Sealy's Bay were never made. And this is what I was told about a year and a half ago, although we already have, a plan in place to do something in the village, but I just wanted to know if I could ask the operations director to confirm, not necessarily this evening, that those signs were never made because it seemed as if MTO would never allow us to put those signs on Highway 15. Thank you.
Talking about the blue signs that we had installed. I don't know if they ever were made.
I can confirm that they have
everywhere.
not been made.
Pardon me?
I can confirm that they have not been made.
Okay,
The
that's good.
the blue signs that are located on Highway 15, the Sealy's Bay ones, that's actually managed through Canadian Tods. And there would have to be an application put in to have that adjusted, I believe.
We've already done that. They
Okay.
said.
We went through that once before, but I don't think that was the issue for the villagers, because all the other villages were able to have the signs, even though in a couple of cases they're kind of buried, but just by virtue of where they had to go. But in the case of Sealy's Bay, there doesn't seem to be a great appetite to go that route anyway, because of the resistance over several years from MTO anyway. So we do have an alternative. I think that's what we'll pursue. But I really just wanted to thank the director. I know that coming home and some of the weather we've had in the last couple of weeks, I really appreciate having those entrance signs. Even after 12 years, you can miss that road. So I appreciate the lights that are there. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll pass that on to the staff.
Okay, any further comments or questions in regards to unfinished business? No unfinished business. Any other business? Other business? I've got no other business. Notices of motion. Go ahead,
Yes.
Councilor Grow. Oh, I'll recognize you, Councilor Jameson, after Councilor Grow.
Yep.
Okay, go ahead.
Thank you, through your worship. After what I've seen for the past number of issues regarding flat top boathouses, I will be bringing a notice of motion forward perhaps next week for discussion and debate. And the tone would probably be putting a moratorium on issuing building permits for flat top boathouses until we can decide the proper procedures and whether we want them or not. It won't be an opposition to a flat roof, but we need to clean that process up of, I'm going to call it the end around, like, oh, I think now we're going to make it into a amenity space. I'm not opposed to that. It's just, let's do it properly. I do not want to be sitting here as council discussing those again.
Okay, so
Thank you.
we'll look forward to that notice of motion. And sorry, Councilor Jameson, and then Councilor Lackey.
Your worship, you did say to say, hey, you, your worship, planning to bring a notice of motion with respect to election signs. I will submit a draft to the clerk tomorrow, so it passes muster on how it should be worded and so on. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Lackey.
Thank you, worship. I as well will bring one forward, reiterating what other municipalities have done in the province in opposition to the strong mayor bill.
The strong mayor bill? Okay.
Yep. I'd just like it on record that we discussed it and either
Okay.
approve of it or not.
Okay, that's fine. So if you can contact the clerk, everybody who's brought their notice of motion, just to make sure that the wording is clear, so we can move forward with those at the next meeting. Okay, any other notices of motion? Seeing none, I'll go to the mayor's update. Mayor's update is very brief. I was very pleased to see a number of council members out and about sharing Christmas cheer over the last few weeks at a number of different events and the holiday festivities that are happening. So thank you to those, the most recent ones on the weekend. I was away off grid, no cell phone, no internet. Blissful for 2 days. So I know there was a number of individuals who attended the Lansdowne tree lighting and the Gananoque parade, as well as the candy cane lane in Gananoque. Our special thank you to all the township staff who worked very hard to put in a float as well as equipment. The fire group had a few fire trucks in there. We had I believe we had a plow truck, as well as a regular truck and a trailer. And a bunch of crazy kids ran alongside, handing out some candy very safely beside the wagon. So that was the Gananoque Islanders U15 team. And I understand they were well behaved. So my husband gets to, or not my husband, my youngest gets to eat another day. So the other things that have happened, obviously the tree lighting in Sealy's Bay has happened. Santa came, nobody invited me. I'm kidding. I heard that he made a stop at Ridgeway Chocolate. I still have yet to submit my my Christmas lifts. I guess I better get on that. But I would just encourage everybody to take time to attend some of these community events. I had the opportunity to attend the Rockport lighting of the gates last night, which was lovely. There's about 60 people there. But it's just always to remember there's community members that step forward to organize these events that we get to enjoy, to bring us together and share the joy of the season and just see one another again. So with that, I'll go ahead, Councillor Foddy. Oh, right. Stop and Shop. That was the other thing I missed. And the only thing that missed is my wallet, I guess, because I know I would have been shopping till I dropped. So maybe councillors, anybody who attended the shop and drop have anything to say? Go ahead,
Yes,
Deputy Mayor.
excellent, excellent.
Oh, thanks, Councillor Jameson.
Yes, I made the circuit from Lansdowne to Lyndhurst to Sealy's Bay, and it was pretty well attended and the merchants seemed pretty happy, although I was importuned again about seasonal washrooms, but that's the classic question. Thank you.
Okay. I hope all of the individuals that were on the shop and hop tour were the benefactors of the increased traffic. And also, I know it's part of the fun is just running into friends and neighbors who are out there as well to support those businesses. So last but not least, shop local, support local. Sometimes it's not about the stuff, but it's the thought, no matter how big or small. Even a thrift shop that operates here in the village, I'm sure that they would have the odd thing that would be apropos for the individuals that may be looking for it. So the other thing, sorry, just one more thing. Oh, yes. Yeah, so the Friends of Rockport development group, they are collecting donations on behalf of Ukraine that's going to be shipped over, and I'm not sure what the deadline is on that. I know they have a ton of donations already, which is wonderful.
Mid-December is the deadline because I believe they want to have it shipped in January.
Okay. So I know that Wendy Merkley down at Andrus Boatworks, Andrus Marina, she would be one to help put those donations away. They're being stored in the customs house. And let's just say that they've almost filled an entire room. Chock-a-block to the ceiling. So it's nice to see the community spirit, and hopefully those will make a difference to those in great need. The other thing I will recommend is that if you or anybody that lives down on the water has an interest, we are having a meeting on Wednesday evening. Sorry, I don't have my schedule in front of me. Wednesday evening at 5:30 till 6:30. Thank you. So our director of operations, along with the consultant on this particular JML engineering, who is from the Thunder Bay area, will be attending by Zoom. But the whole purpose of this information meeting is to present the design as it is. There will be a Q&A session, and there will be opportunity for people to make suggestions on how to maybe better this design if there's something we haven't thought of or misplaced. We're definitely open to some ideas, but if you have questions about why we've chosen the design so far, all of those sorts of things. So we're happy to have respectful and good debate, and amongst that, or questions, I should say, not debate, and that the director of operations and staff will take that back into consideration before we decide upon the final design. Okay. Excellent. Thank you for that reminder. Oh, sorry, Councillor Jameson, go ahead.
Yeah, just to clarify this meeting, the environmental assessment meeting, that is a Zoom meeting.
Correct. It is
It
not in
isn't-
person.
Right, it isn't just, you mentioned that one of the pros is coming by Zoom, but I'm assuming we're all
Yes, it
invited
is.
by, okay,
M-
great.
My
Thank-
apologies. There was a
Sorry.
comment on social media as to why this needed to be a Zoom meeting and not in person. And the main reason that it is it allows a lot of our waterfront homeowners to attend, obviously, who may not be here this time of year, who might be benefactors of that particular development. Also, our engineer is from Thunder Bay, so it saves us flying them down here for an hour-long meeting, because there would be a flight involved, I'm fairly certain, and hotels and all that kind of stuff. So this just allows us to be more efficient, touch more people, have greater discussion in regards to an input into the process. So thank you for that clarification. Any other things that I've missed? CAO Donachie, would you like to?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Just wanted to remind everyone that the Friends of Springfield House will be having their annual general meeting on Thursday, December 8th at 7 p.m. at the Lansdowne United Church.
Excellent. That's the one on Miller Street in Lansdowne. So go in front of the grocery store, hang a left, First Street, 7:30. You know, the house that where so-and-so lives on that street, you know? You know, the white church. Yeah, I believe there also is a Christmas cantata there. The Gananoque Choral Society is performing at 2:30 on the 10th on the Sunday. So if there's any other events that are happening, please feel free to share them with our staff, McKenna Modler, and she'll do her best to get it up on the township website as well as on social media so that we can all share and help support these community groups and these initiatives for the events. Okay. True. Yes, and our new council pictures are up on the website. We thank Susan Tunnicliffe and her very talented her talent is crazy. She made all of us look good, which, you know, is tough for Jameson, but I had to see if he was listening still and he's muted. So anyways, we just really appreciate her professionalism and the beautiful photos that we have to face the public and show the professionalism of this council going forward. And we really appreciate that. And so if you haven't seen the photos, please go online and take a peek. Is there anything else I've missed? I see nothing unless Jameson is waving in the background. He's still smiling. He's going to throw something at me later. So with that, I'll put the motion on the floor by Councillor Gorell and seconded by Deputy Mayor Olkey that the committee of the whole adjourn. All those in favor? All those opposed?
You're
And we're
going to hear
carried.
from me. You're going to hear.
I know I am. Thank you. Have a good night.